So hi, welcome. I'll introduce myself with only my name, because that's really all that matters, right? My name is Aschkenasy. I'm originally from Switzerland. Live now in Cleveland, which is the funny story about that is the guy from Vancouver yesterday that had these whole pictures, the nice pictures of Vancouver, and then the picture of the rain. So Cleveland doesn't even have the nice pictures. Past few days have been awesome, very informative. I met a whole bunch of nice people, none of which seem to be here today. So I have a bit less than an hour for this talk, and I really was conflicted in how to break up the session, because on one hand, I really want to, like 45 minutes or whatever, 50 minutes are never enough to cover a topic, a technical topic to its fullest, right? No question about it. So really what I always like to do is talk about the theory behind it. On the other hand, people are complaining that they don't get anything to take home and implement, right? So you can't really do only theory, and you can't really do lights. So really what I'm trying to do is split it up, right? Have a theory section for everybody, and then an implementation part for really the technically inclined, because it's really rudimentary and basic stuff, okay? The other thing that I wanted to say is we usually have a Q&A session. Happens to be, in my opinion, Q&A sessions work only for good presentations, so I just cut mine out altogether. But what I really would like to do, and I would like to test it out here, is for the QA session, instead of being a QA session between us, being a QA session between you guys. I'll just moderate, seriously, because there are a whole bunch of people that know stuff, probably know more about performance than me in this room. And we all have problems and figured out new stuff that we can really share amongst the group rather than just me talking to you. So I'm going to talk, I really wanted to say, I'm going to talk about apes today, but yeah, it is performance. So before we start, by show of hands, how many of you have a performance strategy in place, either for your site or for your client site? Wow, cool. That's a great split, actually. That's about 50%, right? Although I know that some of you just didn't pay attention to my question. Understood. So, no question that performance really is the key buzzword for any type of product and everything. I love this one. Like about 4 years ago, I got an email with this attachment, right? And you really have to read it. It's hilarious. I do not know whether or not they actually sold a server performance product. I have no idea. But
Your spam filter was reading that.
It's funny because now all my Google ads say Viagra. But I don't know. Just a coincidence. Yeah, coincidence. I used to Alice knows this. So I got this, and I said 4 years ago, I said, I am going to use this in public at some stage. So thanks God, thank you really. But really for web performance, what really is web performance? Right? It's really a simple answer as far as I'm concerned, which is 2 flavors. So, whenever you talk to me, simple is always at least 2 options, right? And then I'll charge you according to that. So, one is response time, right? That's the simple one. The other one is system efficiency, right? And we have a whole bunch of hosting companies here. That's their bread and butter. So, we're not really going to focus on the system efficiency. We're going to focus on the response time, although there are certain things that we have to implement, and if we don't implement them at all, we're just negligent. It's negligence, right? Usually I refer and I say, oh, at the end of the presentation I will tell you about all the system stuff and then I'll forget. So I'll do it right now. So for any of you that are not technically super or whatever, no, for everybody, right? MySQL versions. Most hosting providers provide you with either 5.1 or 5.4. Everybody uses 5.1. I would like to shoot everybody. It does not make any sense. The performance gain is about 42% between 5.1 and 5.4. And now with 5.6 coming out, oh, there's no question about it. It's ridiculous. And yet, everybody, again, negligence. The other thing is PHP. Yeah.
But the problem is, a lot of applications don't yet support 5.4.
Of course, there is absolutely. We'll get there in well, not a second, but my seconds are always like prolonged seconds. But we'll get there in a second. Right? The other thing is the PHP, right? Memcache. Have you installed Memcache? Do you have APC? Do you have an alternative caching mechanism? And again, okay, I'll wake you up when I'm done with the boring stuff, right? But you have to have some sort of system efficiency, whether or not that's you or you're talking to the host, or before you even choose a host, interview them about this stuff. You have to talk to them. It's not only you, for your client's sake, you have to talk to them, right? No question about it. So we're going to focus on the response time. In order to understand what the response time is, we really have to understand the HTTP request lifecycle, right? Sorry. Before I'm going into this, I'll make one proclamation, which is your client is actually the end user. Your customer is paying you. Your client is the end user. The guy that sits at home at 3 o'clock in the morning with the beer or whatever and is using your customer's application. That's your client. Never forget that, because the truth is, the customer is just a middleman. It's giving you the money. That's perfect. I'm not complaining, right? But if your user is not happy with the service that you're providing, right, your customer is not going to pay you. It's going to pay somebody else. Okay, so the HTTP request really comes down from user to the router, and that's in their home, goes to the gateway, which is the ISP, and etc., etc., and I'll simplify that. Looks up the DNS query, right, comes to the web server, goes through the application stack. Web server for me is the hardware, and there are hardware optimizations, and the application stack is the whole stack, including the OS and the DB, right? The operating system and the database. And then once that is done, we're sending it back to the user, right? The important point here is that there are a whole bunch of elements that we have absolutely no control over. Okay? We have control, limited control over these, and depends on how involved you are and what access you actually have over this. All that stuff in the middle, we usually don't have control over. Okay, unless it's really an in-house application, which, okay. Right? So now that we understand the what, which is we're going to do we're optimizing the response time, right? We have to consider the why. And that's not the technical question of why is my page loading slow, which is, by the way, the why that you will get from your customer, but the why of why do I have to have a performance optimization strategy in place to begin with, right? And there is an ROI. You really have to think about the ROI of precisely this question of the why. Because many blogs do not have to have any type of performance optimization. Especially if the performance cost, or the cost to do a performance enhancement, deters from developing a feature that sets you apart from your neighbor. Right? So there is really a question of ROI that you have to ask yourself. And when I was asking originally, having a performance strategy in place, this is really what I was talking about. I was not asking you whether or not you had a performance technique or a performance tool installed, but I asked you whether or not you have a performance strategy in place. So let's try this again. How many of you have a performance strategy in place? Oh, no. How many of you have a performance tool in place for performance? Perfect. The same people, I would assume that that's the same people that we had before. How many of you have a documented process? Okay, I'm a developer, so documented is a loosely used term. Process of performance optimization. Oh, wow. Yes, you can leave. You don't have to leave. You could leave. So a general question: how many of you knew that there was a difference? You don't have to answer that, right? But how many, like, for business, I see that every day, right? I'm talking to a business. They have no, like, somehow there is no correlation or no understanding of the idea that there are two totally different items that we're discussing here: performance optimization strategy and performance optimization, right? So in order to enforce this, I'm having a nice little exercise here. Whenever I say performance and do this, you say strategy. So let's try it. Performance strategy. Come on. Nicholas is in the other room, and he's like the guru, so we really have to disrupt him a bit. Please. Performance strategy! Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Do you get paid now?
Yeah, but not by the
I plead the fifth. I'm not even American, so I can't even plead the fifth. But whatever. So going back to the question of why in the performance strategy, why should I do any type of performance, right? And the answer is because I'm going to scale. Right? When my client comes to me and says, and we'll go over this in a few slides from now, in a second from now, we'll go about scaling, right? We'll talk about scaling, and they say, oh yeah, we're going to scale, and you have no idea what your system is capable of, right? You have to be able to know where the limitations of your system is. So that's definitely the first step of performance optimization, is to scale. New project. For some odd reason, people forget about it. They said performance optimization comes at the end of my project. Oh, I'll make my pages load faster. Absolutely not. If you're ready from a strategy perspective, from an ROI perspective, if you're starting a new project, that's when you start doing performance optimization. JavaScript, CSS, have it in mind when you start it. Build that in. And then, perceived real problem. I really, really wanted to take the real out altogether. Because I don't give a shit. Sorry. Oh, I hope you can edit it out. The real problem. I don't care about reality. Well, I do care about reality only because reality is an indicator of something that eventually will be perceived. But if you have two problems, one is a perceived problem and one is a real performance problem, what are you going to do is tackle the perceived one before the real problem. Because the perceived problem is lost revenue. Whether that's lost revenue for your customer or for yourself, it really doesn't make a difference. Perceived. Which is the real answer of why am I doing it? I'm doing it because of perception. Perception and usability are the most important performance metrics available. No question about it. Your end user, you can show them up to the wazoo the numbers. If they don't see it themselves when they do, right? Monkey? I love monkeys. Because if the monkey doesn't like it, they're not going to pay you. Perception is definitely more relevant than actual, which is the technical unload to unload. No question about it. That's the problem. This is a problem. Anybody that ever tried to do performance optimization, it varies from page to page. Subconsciously, it varies between page and page, depending on what it is that you're looking at. In your application, most of our Joomla installations have absolutely, well, most of our Joomla installations, I have to be careful how I phrase it, right? Most of our Joomla installations have extremely different parts of them, such as a video section versus a text section, or an image gallery, right? Even core basic stuff. And I'm not even talking about fancy extensions, right? The perception for that will vary from page to page, from page to page. So we have the what, we have the why. The question is now the when, and the when again in the framework of the strategy. Are we doing it on load time? Where is the performance? Load time or runtime? For anybody that says it depends, either you're a politician or you actually understand that it really, really depends. I'll explain. I can go to a site and the performance optimization was for load time, and I'm getting as much information as possible, and I get half of the picture. Or I can go to the runtime, get a loading image, and then get the real picture of the folded paper. By the way, please get your lines out of the gutter, right? So now that really makes a difference. Is it load time? Is it runtime? Better example. In 2007, at the London Media in 2007, and this is a bit outdated, which is why I like theory, because you don't really have to have currents. No, I'm just kidding. A guy named Nate Kuchley, I hope that's that. Please forgive if that's not your real name, last name, from the Yahoo performance team, was introducing this slide at the performance talk, where he compares, or he introduced the new mail beta. Okay? And he compared it versus the mail classic. And I don't know whether or not you can see the numbers. I'll go over them in a second. So essentially, the workflow is very simple. You have you get to the domain, you load the initial page, then you have a whole bunch of actions, which in this case were to view the inbox folder. In the old version, 3 times for whatever reason, you read 3 messages, and then do you compose a message and confirm the send. Right? What we're interested in for this talk is the original load time, right? Load time. Originally, 2.4 seconds. The new and improved version, 12.48 seconds. Now you all go, ha ha ha, they don't know what they're doing. But the truth is, they do, because if you actually think of the user in the framework of the whole application, at the end of the day, even with just 3 actions of reading and responding, they got the total time down from 18.08 seconds to 15.87 seconds. That's a gain of 2.5 seconds for 3 actions. So multiply that by how many ever actions you have on your email, right? We don't just read 3 emails, we read 50 emails, or when I'm coming back from the conference, 5,000 emails. Although my action is going to be 1, select all, delete. Performance gain is unreal in runtime. So you really have to think about it. Yeah.
But going back to your copy of perception, the perception to an end user is, holy shit, it's so slow.
Whoa. That's where performance. Yeah, seriously, performance strategy comes in. In the performance strategy, you have to talk to your UX designer to make somehow the 12-second load time bearable, right? Because that's an application, which means in theory you can do a whole bunch of other stuff. You can increase this to 20 seconds if you're doing during the other 8 seconds something that is engaging the user, right?
But at the same time, for an application like that, if you were to open Outlook or Thunderbird on a desktop, it's the same.
True, but online, he's right. Online, people hate it. Like when I download a movie, no, when I watch a movie online.
Application.
Fine, you're right, but
I mean, I've avoided, a good example as a user, I've avoided when I was using Yahoo Mail Beta, just because their interface takes forever to load. And you go back to Mail
of course.
Classic.
So again, I'm not saying that they're the golden bullet. I'm just saying that the idea behind it is absolutely done. And this is again, which the performance strategy comes in. In the performance strategy, you have to now make sure that the user actually likes to stay for 12 seconds on your page while it's loading. And this is 2007. So now the loading time is anywhere between 40 minutes and 40 minutes. So we have an understanding, I hope we have an understanding of the problem, right, in performance. So the real question now becomes, once we actually have that, is where, and when I'm saying where, I mean where are the low-hanging fruit? Right? This is really what we all ask. In order to actually answer that in a halfway coherent way, Google Analytics, not for new projects. For new projects, you really have to guesstimate. But for existing projects, you can ask Google. If you ask right, you'll get good answers. I'll explain. I don't know whether you can see the page visits. This is my personal homepage. It has 20 million users a day. No. This is why I blurred it out. This is a client of mine. They have an application. This is the data that I'm getting for a month period. It's about 2,000 peaks at 2,000 users a day. Okay. Naive question would be, okay, so stress testing, load testing, performance optimization. I assume I'm going to do the whole application, of course. And what's the benchmark? What's the lowest point that I need to accommodate? Is 2,000 divided by 2,000 a day divided by 24 hours. My math is really horrible. 100, right? But the truth is that's not really what it is. So when I'm saying you have to ask Google, you really have to ask Google the question that you're really interested in. Because what happens to me here is this is it's a timestamp type of application, which means they have a whole bunch of employees that work outside and they recorded their timesheets at the end of the day. So, of course, anywhere between 4 and 6, they're not developers. So at the end of the day, they have an increase to 350, 400. So now the question has become significantly different, right? Which is, again, in the strategy, the benchmarking to where you started. Right? What exactly are you going to improve? What is going on with the site that needs to be improved? Okay, same thing goes for content in general. Right? When your client calls you and says, "Oh, my site load time are horrible," they hardly ever tell you what really is loading slow. They just say, "Oh, my site goes slow." Well, that's what I do. Click. But in reality, it's probably 1 or 2 pages that are problem. Ask Google which pages there are. Where are we load? And they have load time in that as well, right? This is something that you have to document. And when I'm talking about documentation, I'm talking about the user story. And I don't know, any developer in the room probably has used it many, many times. User story means that you're asking yourself, or you write down, what is the problem that the end user has. Right? Remember the scaling problem that we had, the scaling slide a few slides back? This is a user story. This is a real user story. This is the full story. I'll tell you what the client called me and said. Hi Eli, so you remember the timestamp application? Yeah, perfect. Right now we're going to franchise that out. Can we handle that? Period. Yes. That's the standard answer I assume for everybody here. Yes. So I said, oh, so what are we talking about? User base, right? And they said, oh yeah, right now we're about 100 users. No, 700. But that's fine. And how many do you expect to have? 25,000 users. Oh, yeah, thank you. This is precisely what I said. I can't say that. Right? That's one user case scenario. And in the strategy, this has a totally different impact than this one, which is an alternative scenario. He calls me and says, oh, by the way, we have that implemented for one shift. Actually, we have 3 shifts because we're a production company, or whatever it is, right? We want now to handle it for all 3 shifts. The right? We are all there, right? The performance impact is totally different. Totally different. So you really have to ask the question. By the way, here as well, can we handle it? That's not usually how they ask it. They say, you have to get it done, and it should be done by tomorrow night. Right? So that's really, in the user story, that's really the where are the low-hanging fruit. And now we get to what we all came for, and I'm terribly sorry to have bored you that as long, is the tools to actually get a sense of what I can do on the page, right? First, benchmark. Because if you don't benchmark, you have no idea what difference your efforts have made. Period. And when I'm saying benchmark, that's not the page score that you get in YSlow and PageSpeed. That's a real benchmark. And right after that, you really have to set goals. And when I'm talking goals, realistic goals, where you ask yourself, has this issue already been addressed, maybe? Was there any type of performance done on this issue at all? By the way, coming back to documentation, I'm horrible at it, but that's really what it is, right? You have to go through the stack and say, oh, we have already tried this and this and this and this. We have to now find a new way. It sucks being here and giving, no, okay. It didn't stop right there. The sentence continues. It sucks being here for just 45 minutes and having to choose a benchmarking tool that is readily available, not too overcomplicated. Even a caveman can do it for all of us Americans, or you Americans. So really even the technically inclined can do it in a simple manner, right? What I came up with was, of course, AB, right? Which is the benchmarking tool. Anybody know? Everybody? Anybody?
Benchmark.
Yeah? Apache benchmark? Okay. Not too many. Cool. I'm not obsolete. Comes with any HTTP installation, any Apache installation. That's the correct term. Syntax is super, super simple. Oh. Wow. I think you can't read the times correctly. I think it's like 35 minutes, right? Syntax is very simple. AB, which is the program, number of requests that I'm sending out, concurrent users, and finally the URL that I'm setting. The response that I'm getting back is really broken up. I don't know whether or not you can read it. It's really broken up into 4 pieces. You have server software, which is interesting for personal information, just like what are the big guys using, right? The document length that you're actually pinging, so whether or not that's the home page or an individual page, how much information are you actually getting down? The test itself, and then statistics about the test. So for us, we actually ran the AB against eBay. Interesting, they're using their own, well, they're using a version of Apache that is usually not readily available to us. Has a document length of a certain byte size. Requests per second, this is important. It can handle 8.83 seconds, 8.83 concurrent connections per second. At 3 o'clock in the morning from my hotel room, which, by the way, you have to document. Because there might be any type of layer in between that really doesn't help me, like this information doesn't help me very much. Okay, so essentially what I'm interested in is in the HTML transfer, requests per second that the server can answer, and the time per request. So of course I couldn't really run all my tests against eBay, so I went through one of the production sites or a new client, and this is what I got back from it. It's very simple. You'll Google it, read the man pages. There are a few other additional flags that you can set, such as header, so you can actually test as a specific browser. Time, -t, and -k, which is the key to life. Okay. Anybody knows what this is? Okay. Anybody knows what Firefox is?
I've heard of it.
Okay. Anybody knows what? No, let's put it this way. If you don't have Firebug installed, please exit the room now. Now, has anybody not ever heard of Firebug? And I should have asked that actually prior, right? Firebug is really the extension. It's the Swiss Army knife for any web developer. It's a debugger tool. And in addition to Firebug is Wislow, right?
But there are other ways.
Of course. But we're talking, yes. The answer is yes. So we ran it against the same site against Wislow, and we got 5 Fs and a score grades D. Again, without A/B, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any difference. This is yeah, okay. Your score is 800,576. The random number. You have to have some sort of a benchmark here that says, oh, my max loading time was 4.5 seconds. Right? My median loading time for this page was 1.2 seconds. Okay? While we were on Wislow, there is another tab right next to it, which is often overlooked, the Net tab, which shows you what requests actually got sent out. This was this ran against the home page, and this is a bonus question. I'm downloading here an asset from a unnamed source. It starts with G and rhymes with Google. That I'm absolutely not using on the site. It's a max. Right? So this is a warning sign. The 2 bottom lines is a warning sign, because in reality what happened here, we had it in the header, right? We just added, oh yeah, let's call that script from Google in the index.php file of the template. Everywhere where it is, let's just call it for good measure. And it wasn't even cached. That's the best part about it. So each and every time you go to another page on my thing where you don't need the map, you still download the whole map again. The other tool is page speed. Right? Anybody familiar with that? Good. Both of these tools are awesome because not only are they good tools to test, they're good tools to tell you what to do. And this is really why I really do like the theory significantly more than the application, because the truth is, their documentation is awesome. Wislow is significantly better, by the way, than PageSpeed, but whatever.
Page data?
Page speed.
Page speed.
So it's yeah, it's an add-on to. No. Just Google it, and you'll be able to add it to either of your browsers. When I say either of your browsers, I of course mean a browser as opposed to IE.
6 or 7.
Yes. Yes. End of theory. Quickly, I'll try to give you a few hints on how really to bring that to fruition. I have no idea whether that's JB eTolo or JBE Tolo or JB Tolo, but this is an awesome plugin. JProven came up with it. It really does everything that you could do in the rudimentary basic performance for rudimentary performance optimization. When I'm talking about rudimentary, really what it does, you can combine your files, right? The 4 things that you can do: combine the files, minification of files, gzipping, and correct file placement. Yes.
Is that going to be in conflict with frameworks that already have such technologies?
No. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. but there are ways around it.
Okay, and
Right.
the second thing is, you're talking about G-zipping. For those who don't know,
Yeah, so I'll go over just very quickly. Combining really it doesn't really improve download times other than you don't have to send 15 requests. That's, by the way, one of the Fs. Well, Fs, I have 20 external JavaScript, which means I have to actually send out 20 requests for the data back. I'm not getting less data back with one file. I just don't have to make less requests, okay? That's combination. Minification means that you're eliminating everything human, other than the humans, from the file. That's my by the way, that's my disclaimer. That's my zombie thing for today. Apparently, this was a note that everybody got. Everybody has to talk about zombies. So here we go. So it minifies it, and then gzipping is actually just a compression mechanism on the server that sends you a compressed file, and then file placement is at the bottom of. So you load the JavaScript at the end, which doesn't prevent the loading of the page.
Okay, so isn't gzip feature built into Joomla already?
Yes.
something you taught us.
But
Right.
yeah, the answer is A, yes, but most people don't have it on, number one. Number two is this is not, well, yes and no, because this actually gzips a different set of files.
And what about Smart Optimizer?
Yes.
Okay.
That's really...
Not a plugin.
No.
But-
Of course.
Yeah.
This is not the answer. JB told, whatever it is not the answer.
Got
It's one answer. Okay? So, and everything that you have on the Wise Flow has a corresponding tab in that plugin. I really do happen to like this plugin, especially for simple sites. Very, very easy. For a bit more intricate site, it becomes a bit more intricate. Very simple. JavaScript, you have a JavaScript tab that says whether or not you want to merge it, or minify it, and compress it. Whenever you have a problem, the first thing that you should do, it's always, by default, it's always set to, let's see if I can do this, to mono, which internally does something different. That's a bit too technical for this, right? Always change it to per resource and see whether that makes a difference, right? Next thing then, of course, is the CSS, exactly the same thing. One thing that they have, which they don't have, which there isn't any score on Lightslow, is miscellaneous, which is the lazy loading images. Lazy loading images means that you're loading stuff that is not visible currently, only when your browser actually moves within the range of visibility. Yeah.
A lot of template frameworks had that built in. Would there be a conflict with that?
No.
Okay.
No, it's either or. Interestingly enough, for templates, if you're even before you do this, there are templates out there. All the templates, they all have that built in. They're awesome, by the way. I'm not a spokesperson for them. This is my legal disclaimer. I'm not a spokesperson for, but they really are good. Like, so you have a whole bunch of templates that already have parts of that built in. I just ran that on our production site, and I got from a D to a B. And what's more important, the performance score is now 84, from 69 to 84. Okay, so that's simple. That really is simple. Takes about, I don't know, an hour to really figure it out. You get this. Okay, so that's a simple.
One thing to mention for people who are users and not familiar with this, or even developers, it will break your site some of the time, depending on the template, depending on the parameters. You have to experiment because and make sure you have a backup because it can break your site.
Right. First of all, they say that too. Not only that, never ever do that on live development. Same thing goes for Google. I from 2 high priority problems, I went to 1 high priority, which is browser caching, which is a weird topic in general. So let's go over that very quickly. Joomla cache. First of all, there was a plugin in the backend that you have to turn off, apparently. And then on the front end, let's see if we have. So, we're not done, right? With this extension, we're not done. We have to enable gzip, as somebody said here, right? On the front end, that's on the global configuration on the server. Enable it regardless. It really, I don't think has any adverse effect. Maybe somebody knows of the adverse effect.
Yeah, it does actually. If your site is running on VPS, make sure you have enough memory for your GPU and VPS because gzip
Yes.
is a memory
Hogger.
hog.
No question. You're right. Absolutely right.
As a hosting company.
Right. So here you go. The other one is the plugin manager, the system cache, which we just did, we talked about. The other one is, once that actually is done, you actually have to turn it on in front of it, right? Which I have never forgotten. Global configuration, system, turn it on. And there you can decide whatever you have, whatever type of mechanism you have, you get in the selection box. Enable client cache. HT-access. There is another talk, and I really could cover it, but I don't have the time to cover it. There is another one at 2:15 in this room actually, where I think he's going to talk. Ha! So what, were you spying on me here?
Adding some notes.
Hey!
Adjusting my presentation.
Sorry, man.
We both have everything.
HT-access, he's going to talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Can I give them a quick overrun? You have 3 flavors, depending on what extension your Apache can actually handle. Mod header. This is a must, by the way. There's no way around it. You have to have some sort of client caching, unless you really don't care about performance at all. But caching means that you don't have to download the resource again and again and again, right? So especially for video files. Oh yeah. Absolutely, there's not even a question. Make sure that 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, depending on how often. The only thing that you have to remember with this is when you do a new file, you have to rename it. But that's really all that there is to it, because it goes by name, by file match, okay, by extension match. There is another option. So this is if you have mod header. This is the syntax, and these slides will be available. So you can take as many pictures as you want, but I think they will be
I don't know
available.
when they're going to slow them
That's
up.
what you said about renaming the file. I didn't quite catch that.
Since we are caching by file extension, all that it looks for is the file extension of MP4 or my OGG file or my WebM file, and please tell me that somebody knows what I'm talking about. Yes. These are different. These are the HTML5 extensions, file formats. So let's say you have intro 01, and now you're updating the file, and it's a new file. You can't really call it intro 01 anymore.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise you get the old file. So if you update your content, you have to actually update the file. This is like the infinity sign? Almost.
You're done.
You're done.
Apparently I'm done. Yeah.
I have a question. So you're saying you need to add all of this code
Into
to
the HT.
your HT-access file, so at the very end where
Yep.
you can, I guess,
Yep.
we should all have this.
Some so either this, and that depends.